let's move on. Running backs here that we like and don't like. AJ, who's a running back that you like this week?
I'm going with Aaron Jones from the Green Bay Packers. I think he's got another good lineup this week. We know Aaron Rodgers has been banged up, although he plans to play. We're now talking about a broken thumb, talking about some messed up ribs. They may rely a little bit more on the running game, and we are talking about them facing the Chicago Bears. In week 2, when he faced the Chicago Bears, had 132 rushing yards, put in 38 as a receiver, and a season-high 32 fantasy points. The Bears are in the bottom 10 allowing points against fantasy running backs to the position. So I think you can expect that to continue here. I think that's a trend you can bank on. Aaron Jones has been their offense along with Christian Watson over the last couple of weeks, and I look for that to continue. I think Aaron Jones has a great matchup, another fire up for you.
Yeah, for me, it's Kyren Williams. You saw my rankings. I had him at an RB24, I believe. Cam Akers is sick, so dealing with an illness. I'm not sure if he'll be ready by Sunday. Even if he is, you saw Kyren play 70% of the snaps this past week. But more so than anything, we saw with Josh Jacobs, and I know Josh Jacobs is a dog, and maybe that's not Kyren Williams, but we saw what he was able to do to that Seattle run defense. I think Kyren Williams has some success here. They're getting involved not only in the run game, but also in the pass game. He had 3 targets last game. He's getting more and more work as he's working his way back from that injury. They don't have a lot of depth in the backfield. They obviously still don't love Cam Akers because he's still not playing over Kyren Williams. I think it's a youth movement now for the Rams. They're going to look what they have going forward. So I think this is more about volume than it is about efficiency. I don't think he's going to be very efficient, but I think if he's going to touch the ball a number of times like he did last week, he got 9 points last week. I think he can get into the double digits this week, and I think that's a nice low end, back end RB2 to top flex play there. So I really like that matchup with Seattle. I think he takes advantage of the matchup plus the opportunities he gets and works his way into that back end RB2 conversation.
Aaron, I don't know if this is because I got into the doc before you did to put mine in here or not, but let me hold on. What's the school called? Bainbridge represent. Dameon Pierce is the dude right now for the running back position. That's my start. I love this matchup that he has. He's going up against the Cleveland Browns this week. The Browns are 31st against the opposing running backs here in fantasy. The only team worse than that is the Houston Texans on the other side. But good thing Dameon Pierce is not facing his own team. That doesn't make any sense. Dameon Pierce is my running back that I'm going with this week. I love the matchup against Cleveland Browns, ranking 31st against opposing running backs. It has not been easy for Dameon Pierce over the past few weeks. He's RB 37 over the last 3 weeks, but really, when you look at it, the last 2 games he's faced the Commanders and he's faced the Dolphins, 2 of the best defenses in terms of fantasy, stopping the fantasy running backs. It changes this week. He's got a great matchup against Cleveland Browns. They're allowing a rushing touchdown per game. And now I was harping on James Conner this past week because he was facing the Chargers defense, which is also allowing a rushing touchdown per game. And you were like, okay, does that rushing touchdown come from Kyler Murray or does it come from James Conner? You didn't know. This week with Dameon Pierce, you have Kyle Allen as your quarterback. You know it's not coming from Kyle Allen. It's going to come from Dameon Pierce. In games this year where the Texans have scored more than 17 points, you've seen a heavy workload for Dameon Pierce. Now, I'm no NFL coach. I don't get paid to do this. There are guys that are getting paid to study this. You don't think that they're seeing that when their offense is the most successful, it's because they're giving the workload to Dameon Pierce? I think that's what they figure out here. They go into this game facing the Cleveland Browns, who have a terrible running defense, and you see a similar day to what he had against the Chargers earlier on in the season. Dameon Pierce, start him up.
Everything I was going to say earlier when you asked me about Dameon Pierce. Exact words.
I don't want to disagree because I have him and I love Dameon Pierce, but I'm disagreeing with you. Everything you said is factual. Everything you said is factual.
Yeah. Oh, I know.
I don't trust it. I don't trust it. I don't trust what I've seen from Houston over the past couple of weeks. 15 carries in the last 2 weeks. Dameon Pierce hasn't scored a touchdown since week 5. They don't score. They don't use them the way they should use them. You talk about the touchdown. He's so touchdown dependent because he doesn't do anything out of the passing game. Even the game, he went 27 for 139. His ceiling was 13 fantasy points. He is the definition of touchdown dependent. He is Brian Robinson with maybe more opportunity, but even then, lately hasn't been that much opportunity. So I do think his ceiling is capped as an RB2. He's been, I think, in the top 12 RBs 3 times, and that was that 3-game stretch early in the season where it was Jacksonville, Chicago, and the Chargers. But I'll be honest, I just don't trust this Houston offense. What if the game gets away from them again, like it did last week? He's irrelevant. Yeah. He becomes irrelevant, and I don't like that. I don't like players like that, especially on bad teams, because how many games are going to get away from Texans? Damn near all of them. So when that happens, like he becomes eliminated. And I love Dameon Pierce. I think he's a good runner, physical, but they need to start using him in other ways in the passing game. Find a way to get him in there for me to feel comfortable. Rex Burk's heads out, but even then they went to Dare Ogunbowale. So. I hope you're right. I know Cleveland's defense sucks, and I know you can run on them. I just worry that they get behind, and when they get behind, they start throwing the ball. That Houston starts trying to throw the ball. And that's going to frustrate me as a fantasy owner, but also just be disappointing for Dameon Pierce because it could be another dud game. But I do like the matchup. I think the matchup's a really good matchup. So in the context of our conversation, yes, I do like your matchup.
Yeah, I think you could see another a day from Dameon Pierce. I think double digits is in the range of outcomes here. I think a 13-point day somewhere around there for Dameon Pierce is where I would be setting the line for him. I think a high end RB2 is where you're going to see Dameon Pierce finish the week and push into that RB1 category because of how juicy the matchup is against Cleveland Browns. Let's talk about bad matchups we don't like. AJ, who you got?
Yeah, this week, tonight, actually, no Devin Singletary for me. He had a great matchup last week against the Lions and ended up only scoring 9 fantasy points. We expected a lot more out of that. And I think he's going to have a very tough time against the Patriots today, who are one of the better run defenses in the NFL, allowing the fewest points per game to running backs this season in the last month, allowing single digits. The Patriots have actually had Devin Singletary's number all the times he's played him. Last year, 2 times, couldn't rush for more than 40 yards. He's only topped 50 yards once in his 5 career games against the Patriots. I think that continues today. You're not going to see him get any passing work. He's only had no more than 2 targets in the last 3 games. That work is now going to guys like James Cook and Nyheim Hines. I think it's going to be a tough day for Devin Singletary. If you have other running backs, which I'm sure you do, you should probably go that route.
Yeah, for sure. I agree. For me, it's Alvin Kamara. You mentioned him earlier, and to be honest, I ranked him higher than I wanted to. I don't love the matchup against Tampa Bay. I don't love what I've seen from Alvin Kamara over the past couple of weeks, really over the course of the season outside of that like 3 or 4 week stretch. There's something in the back of my mind that still is reluctant to just fade him completely. Like I mentioned the other day, I was like, or to you on the chat, like sell him to me low. I'll buy low on him just because I know what his ceiling is when he gets right and he's still involved in the passing game. But you can't really trust him as your RB1 right now. He did not play against Tampa earlier this year, so you don't really know what that looks like. I do expect him to get probably 5-6 targets in this game. So he'll have a day where you can look at the fantasy production and say, okay, it's probably some RB2, maybe back in RB2, but I don't think the ceiling is there right now for him. He is not scoring touchdowns this year. He has 1 rushing touchdown on the year and only 2 receiving touchdowns on the year. I don't know how to put this really into context, but last year he had 9 touchdowns. The year before that he had 21. His lowest output has been 6, and that was in 2019. I just don't. He's a touchdown guy. He usually gets in the end zone, finds a way to get in the end zone. He hasn't this year. It's been a disappointing year for Alvin Kamara, so I'm fading him this week. I think he's more. You have him, you start him, but you start him and expect more of a middle to back end RB2.
That doesn't make me feel good. That doesn't make me feel good because I did trade for him. But that I'm getting the same feeling. I'm getting the same feeling. I'm starting to feel and lean towards that way. And it's one of those situations where it's a running back. You're like, okay, we've seen what the potential is, and almost similar to the Lamar Jackson thing. And maybe not similar to the Lamar Jackson thing because Lamar's actually putting up the points, but similar to just, the ceiling is there or could be there with Alvin Kamara, but it just hasn't been, and you have no way of telling where this offense and where this direction of this team is going under Dennis Allen. If it was Sean Payton, you'd have a little bit more hope, but this time around, you don't. I understand that Alvin Kamara feeling. My running back, though, is someone that you guys might look at and think, oh, he had this blow-up week last week. You're going to continue rolling with him. But my running back that I don't like the matchup for this week is Miles Sanders of the Philadelphia Eagles going up against the Tennessee Titans defense. Last week, Miles Sanders, obviously, he popped off. He went off. He had the big game, 2 touchdowns, and he blew up. He was incredible. 2 touchdowns, 143 yards. It was a great game for Miles Sanders. He's like, okay, this is that dude. Going up against Tennessee Titans defense is a little bit different. And I know everyone's high on Miles Sanders because of that game. I'm trying to bring you guys back down to earth, especially with this matchup against the Titans, who rank 3rd against opposing running backs. Prior to last week's blow-up game, Miles Sanders had 12 carries and 13 carries in the previous 2 weeks for a max of just 54 yards and 0 touchdowns. Let's not forget where Miles Sanders was last year with the fact that we were just begging for him to get in the end zone, and he didn't get it. His fantasy production last year was not great because of that. And I'm not saying Miles Sanders is having that type of year all season, but in this matchup specifically, I think you're looking at him to be a touchdown-dependent guy. And I don't know if you get it going up against Tennessee Titans defense that is only allowing has only allowed 1 rushing touchdown in the past 3 weeks. I don't think you get it here from Miles Sanders. And I think if you do get a rushing touchdown, it might not be from him. It might be from a Jalen Hurts or shocker, it comes from a Kenneth Gainwell or a Boston Scott. I just don't know if you're going to see that type of production from Miles Sanders. And yeah, sure, it's hard to produce 143 and 2 tutties. It's hard to continue that type of pace. But I would like to go back to what Miles Sanders has actually been leading up to that. And I want to temper expectations for Miles Sanders going up against a really tough matchup in the Tennessee Titans defense.